What's up, YouTube? Punk Metal Dow here with a video that I think might be a little controversial, even though I don't really mean it to be, mainly just because I feel like any sort of religious conversation becomes very controversial. There is that old saying, the only two things you don't talk about are religion and politics. I do want to emphasize right off the bat, this is not meant to attack anyone. The reason that this video is called an open letter, in my experience, an open letter sort of situation is being very honest and candid, but not being insulting and rude or inflammatory or however you would like to put it. Um, with all that said, though, and I apologize if I kind of take a second and gather my thoughts. There is no script for this video. I wanted it to be very organic. But I would also like to start off by saying I realize that everybody's different. The the views and questions and whatnot that I'll be expressing here don't really apply to every single Christian. But there's some things that I've just never understood growing up, and even as a 35-year-old who's experienced a pretty decent amount of things in life and talked to various types of people, and even as someone who's studied a bit of psychology and has a pretty decent grasp on it. I mean, I'm not any sort of psychology major. I'm not extremely well versed in it, but has a pretty decent grasp on it. There's just some things about Christianity I've never come to understand. The first one that comes to mind is we often hear anymore when there's a school shooting that, well, if only they hadn't essentially excommunicated God from schools, then this wouldn't happen. God would be there to protect, these people, but, you wanted to kick them out of the schools, so this is what you get. And I guess this is going to be multiple questions. The first one being, how could you be so callous? I don't understand how, and how could you believe that your kind, caring, benevolent God is that callous? I've never understood that. And again, these are not attacks. Actually, ironically enough, another question is why Christians feel that they're always attacked so much, but that comes later. Maybe I should have opened with that. I don't know. But these are genuine questions that if any Christian is watching this, I would love to see comments on. But I don't understand the logic behind the idea that a kind, caring, benevolent God that realizes that humans are imperfect would say, oh, I'm not allowed in your schools, well, go ahead and die. Especially since you have to stop and think. Some of those people that were unfortunately killed were probably Christians themselves. So I don't understand the logic behind that, to be 100% honest. Also, the next question revolving around that, how is it that, I can't think of exactly the correct term because it's early in the morning and I'm not highly political anyway. Let's just say the legislature or whatever it was states that there is no mandatory prayer in school. And I want to emphasize that word mandatory. So if people aren't being forced to pray to your God, how is that saying that he is not allowed? When you can pray to your God all you want, that sounds like he's allowed. It's just that a public school is not allowed to force your God on someone. And I don't know, do you not realize how petty that makes you seem? I mean, again, not an attack. I know it may sound that way, but we should all kind of realize how we come across. I mean, that's why I kind of stop and take a second to kind of, collect my thoughts and carefully choose my words. And yeah, okay, sometimes I fail in that endeavor. I get that. I'm only human. I'm not here to prop myself up and give some sort of false high status to myself that's not deserved. But do you realize how petty that makes you sound when you sit there and you take something that says no mandatory prayer, but yet you spin it as, well, God is 100% excommunicated from schools? The third question, and again, I realize this doesn't apply to every single Christian, but the third question revolving around this subject, I've politely and tactfully asked people on Facebook when they've brought up this thesis. I've asked them the same question that I just asked, prior to this, and they just completely shut off. So, if you actually feel that you're correct about this, why wouldn't you tactfully express your views on this? Again, I thoroughly don't understand. And if you feel that you're wrong, why can't you just admit that you're wrong? It just kind of traces back to my previous point. It's about, I don't want to sit here and emphasize how you look in the eyes of others too much, because I'm the type of person that there's only so much credibility I can put into how other people perceive me. And I don't want to sit here and essentially say be a prisoner to how other people perceive you. I understand not wanting to do that. And I respect any individual regardless of any sort of status, whether it be sexual orientation, belief system, gender, whatever. I can respect someone who doesn't make themselves a prisoner of everybody's thoughts. I can agree with not making yourself a prisoner of everybody's thoughts, but at the same time, when you live in a world where you're surrounded by other people, you do kind of have to put some stock into how you're perceived. So, do you not realize how your inability to admit that you're wrong, assuming that you feel that you're wrong, do you not realize how that kind of makes you look? And the last question that I have for Christians, I do understand that there is persecution in the world, but I also understand that persecution happens to everybody. And I do understand as well that here lately, at least, it has been a little too acceptable to persecute Christians. I don't really think it should be acceptable to persecute anybody. But I do realize that here lately it has become a little too acceptable to kind of persecute, Christianity. But for people that say that your home is in heaven, not on earth, and who basically kind of seem to have an emphasis on it's more important of what God thinks of you, excuse me, sorry, and that he realizes that you're trying to be a better person and to follow his path, even though you're not perfect, even though you'll never be as perfect as him. And maybe everything I just said in there was incorrect. I mean, if I said something that was incorrect, feel 100% to educate me, because that's the idea of this video. It's to start an open dialogue and to kind of get thoughts and opinions out there and to kind of educate one another, hopefully. But for people that have an emphasis on it doesn't matter what others think of me as long as I know I'm doing right and God knows I'm doing right, why do you feel so... Basically, no pun intended, I would say sheepish, because there's a lot of Christians anymore that they are too afraid to admit that they're Christian. I was talking to a very nice lady, I can't remember what it was about, but she goes, Well, from my view, and then she kind of looks around suspiciously and whispers, as a Christian, why? I mean, just say what you are. I don't, despite the screen name, I don't particularly have a belief system. I do feel that some belief systems have some very valid points, but I also feel that they fall short. Um, if I had to choose one, Taoism does make a lot of sense to me. It's a very peaceful belief system about, just kind of going with it and, self improvement and whatnot. And those are ideas I can get behind. But I don't actually consider myself a Taoist. I've read books about the Buddha, but I don't consider myself a Buddhist, even though I do find him to be a very intelligent person that has some very good ideas. And that's not to say that I can't find good ideas in Christianity as well. But I don't understand how a people that basically kind of sit there and, well, it doesn't matter what you think because, and sorry, I realize I've said this multiple times, but it doesn't matter what you think because God knows the nature of my heart and this, that, and the other. How you've become so afraid to say who and what you are. I'm here in the West talking about my appreciation of Eastern philosophy, and I really don't make any attempts to hide that. Maybe there's times in my life I don't particularly want to talk about belief systems, so I don't particularly bring them up, but at the same time, if someone were to ask me, hey, where do you stand? I would tell them the same thing I just said. I don't particularly subscribe to any sort of belief system, but I do see validity in some of them. So, I guess that's basically it, though, without sounding like a broken record. I've never understood any of those facets of Christianity. And again, kind of a disclaimer. I realize that this is getting a bit repetitive. It'll wrap up here in a second, but I do feel the need to kind of give this disclaimer again. This is not an attack. If you feel it was, not to be rude, but that's 100% on you. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't say anything derogatory. I didn't call you anything inflammatory. Anything of that nature. I didn't give you any reason to believe that you're under attack by this video. And again, not to be rude, but if you feel that this video has attacked you, you might want to seek professional help for an underlying cause in that belief that I have attacked you, because I've been very tactful. I've made attempts to kind of, be humble about what I'm saying and say, hey, maybe I'm incorrect about this. If I am, educate me. And to, give my best attempt to kind of see things from your point of view, even if I don't particularly share it. But with all that said, if you like this video, please feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe, ring the notification bell, all the typical crap you hear at the end of every single YouTube video. If this just simply wasn't your thing, I have other sorts of videos, interesting reads, video game videos, thoughts on video games, epic and funny moments. If nothing I've presented here is for you at all on my channel, please feel free to check out my friends. All Your Data Belongs to Us does some very artistic and interpretive videos. Black Angus Reviews does movie and television reviews, as well as podcasts and thoughts on the social climate of today. Spec M Auto has some very educational videos and some very entertaining auto-related videos. Katarina Ivory does Drag Queen Storytime, as well as Snackbox Tastings. And Roached85 is a very phenomenal Star Wars Battlefront player with epic and funny moments. And if nothing I've presented here at all appeals to you, regardless of where life takes you, here's wishing only the very best to you and all those closest to you. And have a great day. Thank you.